Every few years, this exact circus rolls back into town. A new Pokemon game gets announced, people lose their minds, the trailer drops, the fanbase starts doing cartwheels, and suddenly everyone is acting like this is the moment Pokemon is finally going to evolve into the masterpiece it was always meant to be. Then the game comes out. People play it for a few days, reality sets in, and the conversation resets to the same place it always ends up. Well, it could have been better. Because here is the truth nobody really wants to say out loud. Pokemon games were never actually that good. Not in the way people pretend they were, not in the way nostalgia likes to remember them, and definitely not in the way the franchise's reputation would suggest. Now, that does not mean Pokemon is worthless. It does not mean the games are unplayable garbage. It does not mean there is nothing charming about them. Of course, there is. That is exactly why this whole thing has worked for so long. But charm is not the same thing as quality, nostalgia is not the same thing as depth, and selling a billion copies is not the same thing as making a genuinely great game. Chapter 1: The Illusion of Innovation. Every generation introduces a new gimmick. Mega Evolution, Z moves, Dynamax, Terrestrialization, and it's treated like the series just reinvented itself. Except it didn't. Underneath all those mechanics, it's still the same formula. Pick a starter, walk through the routes, beat gyms, stop an evil team that isn't nearly as threatening as it thinks it is, beat the Elite Four, become champion. That's been the loop for decades. That is Pokemon in a nutshell. That is the machine. The franchise has been running the same basic software for decades, and people keep clapping because the wallpaper changed. It keeps slapping new features on top of an old skeleton and calling that progress. But real innovation would mean changing the actual structure of the game. Real innovation would mean taking risks that might actually challenge the formula instead of just decorating it. Pokemon almost never does that. It flirts with it, it teases it, then it gets nervous and runs back into the safe little box it has lived in since the beginning. Because why would it do more? This is the ugly genius of the franchise. It knows exactly how little it has to do to keep people buying. Chapter 2: Nostalgia is carrying a massive load. A huge part of Pokemon's reputation comes from people remembering how the games felt, not what they actually were. When you are a kid, every cave feels mysterious, every rival battle feels personal, every evolution feels incredible. The game becomes your whole world. But go back and replay a lot of those older games today, and they are surprisingly slow, repetitive, and mechanically simple. The AI is basic, the dialogue isn't anything special, the pacing drags. So yes, people look back and think those older games were magical, but were they actually magical, or were you just 12? Pokemon is one of the biggest nostalgia franchises ever created, because it hooks itself directly into childhood. It is not just a game series, it is your starter Pokemon. It is the anime, it is the trading cards on the school bench, it is the arguments about who was stronger, Charizard or Blastoise. It is woven into people's experience of gaming, collecting, and obsessing over fictional creatures. So when a new game gets criticized for not feeling magical, what is really happening is that people are comparing it to a memory that has been polished over time. Of course, the old games feel better in your head. Your brain edited out the boring parts. Nostalgia makes people think that Pokemon used to be profound, when it really just made them feel young. Chapter 3: The bare minimum became the business model. Let us be brutally honest about how this franchise works now. Pokemon does not need to be great, it just needs to be Pokemon. The brand is too massive, the fanbase is too loyal, the name is too powerful. They could announce a new mainline Pokemon game with the most half-baked premise imaginable, and millions of people would still line up to buy it. Game Freak knows this, Nintendo knows this, the entire industry knows this. And once a company realizes that the audience will show up no matter what, the pressure to actually push the product disappears. They are not trying to be the best version of themselves. They are trying to be functional enough, to be familiar enough, and to be marketable enough. Add a new region, add some new forms, add one gimmick that looks cool in the trailers, throw in a rival with the personality of a damp napkin, ship it and people will buy it. And they do. They do buy it every single time. And sure, some people will say, well, it's for kids. But being made for children does not mean a game has to be shallow. It does not mean it has to be creatively timid. Kids deserve better than that, by the way. And so do adults that have grown up with the franchise. Chapter 4. Even when it tries, it still plays safe. The frustrating part is that Pokémon occasionally shows flashes of something better. It experiments with open worlds, new exploration, or different mechanics, and then it immediately backs away. Every idea feels half committed, just enough change to make you think the series is finally moving forward, but never enough to actually transform it. This is why the modern criticism of Pokémon never fully goes away. People are not mad just because the series refuses to change completely. People are mad because even when it does change, it changes just enough to remind you that it could be better, and then refuses to actually become the better thing. This is where Pokémon is now. The series has trained people to expect so little that merely not falling apart, not getting bugged out, gets applause from people. And that tells you everything you need to know. Because once a franchise reaches the point where its biggest win is not embarrassing itself, it is no longer being judged like a great series. It is being judged like a comfort food brand, or like Fast and the Furious. Conclusion. Okay, I don't want this video to come across as just a rant. Pokemon has genuinely given me some of my favorite childhood memories. Whether it was rushing home after school to watch the anime, trading Pokemon cards with friends, or realizing that there were games where I could become a Pokemon trainer like Ash Ketchum myself. That is exactly why I'm so critical of it. I know how much potential the series has, and I just wanted to stop settling for good enough. Pokemon doesn't need another gimmick. It needs the confidence to evolve in the ways that actually matter. Because I'd love nothing more than for the next Pokemon game to prove everything I said in this video wrong. Thank you for watching.